guys, and welcome back to JavaScript Playground. In today's video, we will talk about functions in JavaScript. So this is the basic syntax to define a function. Let's see what this block of code means. We use the function keyword to declare a function. Then we give our function a name. Then we pass some parameters inside the parenthesis. It's not required by the function to have parameters. It can also be defined with no parameters. The purpose of these parameters is to pass values that a function will need. And then it has this block of code which is executed every time the function is called. Let's try an example to understand it better. Let's bring up the console. So we are going to define a function which prints the sum of two numbers. So again, to declare a function, we use the function keyword. So function, then we give the function name. So let's just call it my sum. And then empty parenthesis, that means I'm not passing any parameters. Okay, then we have some block of code which is executed whenever this function is called. So let's write that. So let's say I've got two variables which hold numbers and another variable which holds the sum of these two numbers. And now let's just print this because that's what a function does. It prints the sum of two numbers. But still, as you can see, there's nothing printed in the console. And why is that? Because to use a function, we need to call it. And to call a function, we write function name followed by parenthesis. So let's try that. So msum followed by parenthesis. Now, as you can see, we've got 30 printed in the console. So this little statement, the function name with parenthesis, it calls a function and the function is executed. All right. So this function printed something in the console. But for example, we want a function to give us some value when it executes. That's a very valid scenario. So let's try that. Let's just comment this one. And instead of this sum and instead of this print statement, let's change it. So now instead of printing it, we need to somehow give it back whenever the function is executed. So for that, we would use the return keyword. The purpose of return keyword is to return the control flow back to where the function was called. So basically back here. And when the return keyword is encountered, the function returns a value without executing more lines of code inside that function. We can specify what is to be returned in this value, but by default, it returns undefined. So let's try it. So let's just use the return keyword and pass sum. So what will happen now is whenever a function is called like this, it will execute all these statements, and when it reaches return sum, it returns the control flow back to our line number 20, where this function was called, and the value is returned along with it. So let's just try printing it. So console log, and let's just print this. And as you can see, we've got 30 in the console, because whenever this function is called, it returns the value which is stored in sum. So for example, if we change this value to 40, it should give us 60. And that's what we got in the console. So whenever this return statement is encountered, no more lines of code are executed inside that function. So let's try that as well. Let's just try printing something here. And now because we aren't returning any value in the function, so by default it returns undefined. And that's what is printed in the console in the second line. This control log msum prints undefined. And now inside the function, we've got the print statement, print statement. Now if you return the value here, this print statement shouldn't be printed. And that's what happens. Now for example, you want to use this return value in a statement. We could just very simply do that. For example, let's say we have another variable which stores the total sum. let's just get the value from the function and try printing this value of total sum. And as you can see, we've got 160 printed in the console. That's a wrap for today, guys.